Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the gold standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Yes, it is. Welcome to the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again, and we are so glad you're all with us. Ken, we are not together in the same room today. You're in Arizona, I'm in California. Lo and behold, the same sites, the offices of Midas Gold Group.
Yeah, right across the street from Deer Valley Airport, Jen. It's starting to heat up. You know, it's that time of year. It's getting close to 100 degrees. Walking around last night, 92, 93 degrees at 7 o'clock at night is quite the environment. But it's a beautiful day. And what also is heating up, Jen, is the price of gold and the price of silver. I don't know what it forecasts. I mean, I'm not into forecasting, but the price is definitely saying something is imminently happening, whether if it's World War III or if it's just our dollar's losing tremendous value. Yeah. Or what I've been getting a lot of calls of lately, Jen, is people who have never even been in the gold market before. They're just asking about, why gold, asking about why I should own it, what's going on, why is my dollar buying a lot less? I think people are starting to catch on to what's going on, but we'll see what happens. Gold isn't going to be available forever. There's only so much of it to go around. We're starting to see some delays in shipping. So as more and more people want, real money, they want to convert their fake money into real money. I think we're going to start to see and continue to see this trend get stronger and stronger.
Well, we are going to ask or answer those questions. Why should you own gold? If you're a first-time buyer or if you are looking to add more gold to what you already have at home, we're going to talk about that today. But before we jump into it, I also have a surprise for you today, Ken, because I like to come with surprises.
I could use a surprise. Hit me.
I have two of them for you. But before we do that, let's start with the big picture. I always like to set the stage. And you have to realize the trouble that we're in economically, and it's a mess with overspending, printing money. It seems like our governments have just gone absolutely nuts in that department. And the reason for it is going back to 1971 in part. President Richard Nixon was in charge, and he had this wise idea, maybe instead of having dollars backed by gold, maybe we just need to stop that for a little while. He took us off the gold standard, created a fiat currency, and now literally our money is just worth the paper it's printed on, Ken.
Yes, we all remember it. Well, we at least should. The famous day, August 15th, 1971. I've instructed Secretary Connolly to eliminate the conversion of the dollar into gold, for the betterment of the dollar, and so our dollar will be as strong as it will be next year. Yeah, right. Okay, whatever. The birth of fiat money, the birth of funny money, monopoly money. And, what's amazing, Jen, is I was speaking to a gentleman today, very successful gentleman. And I said, did you know our country has a debt problem? He says, no. It didn't really. What do you mean? I says, well, we're the world reserve currency. The United States dollar is the world reserve currency. And actually, the title of the show is the United States is losing its world status as world reserve currency. That's what's happening. And I said, well, actually, our country is in $34.6 trillion of debt that is growing exponentially. I said, did you know when President Obama took office, the national federal debt was $10 trillion in 2008, and now we're at $34.6 trillion? And he said, wow, that's a lot. I said, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And I said, do you know where that money came from? He said, no. I says, well, it came out of thin air. They just printed it.
Magic.
And they took out debt, and the magic trick. So the magicians in Washington and the magicians at the Federal Reserve Bank, they're ripping our country apart, Jen. It's being absolutely decimated. I mean, if people don't understand that our dollar is losing its status of trustworthiness and value and buying power, I mean, I don't know what to tell people.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. And people are asking all the time, well, what could I do about it? You know, what are we supposed to do? Well, what you can do is you can diversify, and you could take some of that funny fake money and you can convert it or move it into real money. And that real money being, according to the Constitution, according to history, is gold and it's silver. And, you know, like I said, there's a lot of demand right now for gold and silver. There's a grassroots movement, we feel, of people trying to diversify. We feel that this financial system in a few years from now is not going to exist in its same form that it exists today. Whether or not President Trump is back in office in November or January, whenever that inauguration date is set for, the government is in a real bad way because it really needs to still print a lot of money, and it still needs to borrow a lot of money.
Right. And I do want to underscore just real quick, Ken, because I think it's important to note, because I'm a Trump supporter. You're a Trump supporter. I'm guessing many people listening to this program are Trump supporters as well. He can only do so much. When he wins, he can go in and help lower inflation. That's true. But the borrowing has been done. We are already in this mode. And Republicans spend, unfortunately, in many cases, just like Democrats do. And so we have a real problem that not just one person is going to be able to dig us out of, unfortunately.
No, and I wouldn't be surprised for the disdain and hate that's going on right now. Look at all of these court cases that the whole system collapses as soon as he takes over, and he's blamed, and point the finger at the bad orange man. See, we told you he wasn't capable of doing this job. That would not surprise me in the least. Now, that inevitable result, it's just a question of when. There's so much out there, so many derivatives. There's so much funny money, so much debt, so much leverage. It's just inevitably going to happen. And unfortunately, we're in a position as a country where the only thing and the only answer that our Federal Reserve System has is that they're going to print more money, and the government is going to supply more debt.
Right.
And and I asked this gentleman, I said, did you understand that the interest on our debt is close to $1 trillion a year? No, I didn't even realize that. It's amazing on how many people just really are not aware on the dire, financial situation that our country is, and
too many
it's
zeros.
all based on fake money,
right?
And debt. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Too many zeros for people to even understand it. Look, I do this show with you every week. You say $1 trillion. I mean, I can't even imagine $1 trillion, much less more than that. And that's why we say the good news is that you can protect yourself from all of this by calling Midas Gold Group 855-322-4653. Gold and silver, precious metals, they are the way for freedom-loving people to give themselves financial freedom, separation from a system that's failing them. 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD, or you can check online at all the resources up there, MidasGoldGroup.com. MidasGoldGroup.com. And this is just a perfect segue, if you don't mind, Ken, for surprise number one for you. You ready for that? So
yes.
In doing my prep for my radio shows, which I do every single day, I happen to look at Fox Business. And you started the show with the question that you said people are calling and asking, why should I own gold? This is the headline from Fox Business right now. You ready for this? It's the multitude of headlines. Not making anything up. In order. The cost of living has gone through the roof since Biden took office, and there's no end in sight. Home Depot co-founder Ken Lagone takes Biden to task over absurd economic claims. McDonald's $5 meal reportedly coming in June for a limited time for relief. No end in sight for Americans as key inflation report released. Why JP Morgan chief says U.S. needs to act on its deficit. These are just in order, the headlines at Fox Business right now. Ken, those are all the reasons. When you said people are calling you and saying, why should I own gold? Why should I own silver? Those reasons, just read the headlines in your newspaper, and it's going to tell you everything you know about why, or need to know about why owning precious metals is so important right now, because it can protect you.
Yeah, and let's add a really important one onto there, Jen, is that the United States is losing its status as world reserve currency.
That's
And
right.
this is obvious with the BRIC nations. And I just read an article this week where towards the end of the year, the BRIC nations are going to meet again, and they're coming up with a new global currency that they are designing to ditch, the United States dollar. And remember, the BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and there was 5 new members from last year. There's about 20 new people that are interested in joining. So you're talking about a lot of tangible assets. You're talking about a lot of population. You're talking about some, oil providers and some nuclear superpowers as well. You're getting these countries that are banding together, and they're doing more and more business outside of the dollar. They're doing more and more business in their own local currencies. They're trading and settling some purchases of oil and LNG in something else, and this is going to continue.
Yeah.
They want to de-dollarize, Jen. The trend is we want to do more and more business outside of the United States. And remember, when the United States sanctioned Russia in March of 2020, Russia off of the SWIFT system, it showed that if you have dollar-denominated assets, the United States is going to use that dollar as a weapon, and they're going to pass sanctions, and they're going to freeze assets. Other countries had to say to themselves, well, if that could happen in that case, if we have a lot of dollar-denominated assets like debt or U.S. treasuries, why couldn't that happen to us too?
Right.
So you're going to see, dollar deposits being replaced, and it is being replaced by other central banks of the world with gold deposits. Central banks of the world are purchasing more gold. It's a trend. It's going to continue. A lot of these countries since 2014 have been net sellers of U.S. debt. We're going to see that continue. And all of this just means, Jen, that the grip of the dollar as the U.S. world reserve currency is waning. It takes time, obviously, but with the increase of the gold price, with the increase of the tonnage of gold by these central banks, with the replacement of United States debt with gold, with people taking their money out of the banking system and replacing it with gold, to me, what's going on is obvious.
It is obvious, and we're going to talk more about the dollar losing its status. We will continue that topic. Don't forget, protect yourself with Midas Gold Group, MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. More up ahead, it's the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. Happy to have you along with us. And Ken, we were talking a lot about the dollar and its future before the break. And you had mentioned the BRICS nations coming together, a new global currency. This spells bad news for the dollar. And that means that if all your assets are tied up into the dollar or anything related to it, you could be in real trouble. But not all bad news. The protection is there, and that's why we spend so much time talking about gold and silver.
Yeah, and one of the most obvious things that I would like people to kind of look at this week, Jen, and it's just right in front of you. We're not making this stuff up. I mean, is the U.S. national debt clock. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's at home, if they go on their phone and just type in usdebtclock.org, an amazing sort of tool comes up which counts the debt as it's growing, by each second, which is amazing. It's like a casino with the slot machines just kind of,
like nobody
the numbers
wins.
Are changing. Well, they're just changing so quickly. And
yeah.
I'm looking at this right now, U.S. national debt, $34.7 trillion, okay? The debt per taxpayer, $266,000, $951, debt per taxpayer. Debt per citizen, $103,000 per citizen.
Wow. And
then underneath that little area, it talks about Medicare, which is $1.7 trillion, Social Security, $1.4 trillion, defense, war, which is $900 billion. And this is a year, Jen. This is the costs per year, annual budget items. I mean, I've seen articles where they say Social Security by 2033, 2034, Social Security be unavailable and empty. The funds that support those programs. And all of the numbers is just here. It's inevitably just scary. And at the top of the U.S. debt clock, there's something that's called a time machine. And you can go back to like 1980, 2000 and see, what the debt was even back then. If I pull up 1980 and I pull up the debt, do you have any idea what the national debt was in 1980 when President Reagan took office?
I have no idea. I wouldn't even be able to guess.
$964 billion.
Wow.
And at that time, that was $13,000 per taxpayer.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we just said that in 2024, the debt is now $34.6 trillion, and the debt per taxpayer was $233,000 per taxpayer.
Right.
So in the last 40 years, the debt has gone from $960 billion to $34.6 trillion, and the debt per taxpayer has gone from $13,000 to literally $233,000 per taxpayer.
Literally a house for all of us.
It's exponential.
Mm-hmm.
It's now going, like a ski slope. If you look at any chart of debt, if you look at anything that has anything to do with government debt, private debt, corporate debt, it's all a ski slope. Right. That's all fine and dandy, but we all know that eventually we're going to come down on the other side. Now, when this debt implodes, and then unfortunately there's assets that back up some of this debt, that's also going to take a huge hit. So like you were saying before, if you have dollar-denominated assets and we see a debt crisis, which in my opinion is inevitable, that means that assets are going to lose tremendous value. Our dollar is going to lose tremendous value and tremendous purchasing power. And quite frankly, the whole system as we know it is going to change dramatically. So the question is while this is playing out, and as we transition from where we are today and pile on more debt, we'll be at $50 trillion sometime in the next, probably, I would say, 8 years.
Right.
We'll be at least $50 trillion. What is going to happen during that process so that you, no matter what, will have at least something to show for your hard work and for your time? And for most people, Jen, that's where they say, well, listen, I'm not expecting to make a lot of money on my gold. But the point is that I know that typically over time, it holds its value. It's
right.
A store of value.
It's an insurance policy almost, right?
It's almost as if you're not worried really about making a lot of money at this point. A lot of people are being concerned that they try and protect, what they have, and at least know that no matter what happens, at least that's there, and in my opinion, that's what a lot of people should be thinking about. Rather, if it's bank assets, cash on hand, it could be a stock account, it could be an IRA. We do offer gold IRA services to our clients. It could be an old 401k, but these are the things that people for the first time in their life are really starting to question. How long is this bubble going to last? And when I talk about a bubble, Jen, I mean, it's stocks are in a big bubble, houses, real estate's in a big bubble. Even our money is going through a big bubble period. Price of a Big Mac, right now, $17 for a Big Mac meal, maybe somewhere in that area. I mean, what was the price even 10 years ago? 15 years ago, half of that.
That's right.
As you can see, our money over time, our paper money is losing significant value. And the more debt they take out and the more money they print is only going to worsen this situation. And unfortunately, like we were talking about before, the only remedy to what's going on is more printed money, more debt, which means more risk, more leverage, more derivatives. I mean, that's what it means. More gambling, more volatility. And geez, there has to be a portion of whatever anybody has these days.
And
it's got to be a portion of it.
You can't tie yourself to a system that is ailing and broken that we can all see. And so you mentioned something earlier. I think there are a lot of people who don't like to think about what's next, right? The future is scary. We don't like to think about what's next. We don't like to think about what's down the road. Nobody wants to worry about that kind of stuff. And so we hope that the money that we've earned is going to be enough. We hope that Social Security will kick in and take care of us. But we have to be real. If we're people in our 40s and 50s and probably even 60s, Social Security may not be there for us, probably won't be there for us because it's not going to be able to be saved. So you can't just live on a hope and a prayer. You have to protect yourself. And that's why a gold IRA is a great thing to do. It holds its value. It's going to be there. It's outside of the system. It's something you can hold on to so you don't have to trust that your local bank is going to be there when you need it. God forbid something really bad happens.
Well, and the trend with the banks, Jen, I mean, I think there was about 14,000 banks back in the 80s, and now there's a little over 4,000. So we've seen many banks fail. There's been a lot of, takeovers and mergers and consolidation. And in my opinion, there could just be a few big banks standing, 5 years from now. And then, they roll out this digital system, and it's a lot easier to track only a few banks, and then we're all stuck.
Well, and having 5 banks is not great for us either. And the last surprise, Dix, I promised you 2 surprises, so I don't want to run out of time.
Okay.
The last surprise is an article that I pulled today in our last moment about Bank of America canceling a conservative Twitter user and their bank account because of their content online. So for those of you who might be conservative, you're worried about what's happening to President Trump, you're worried about what's happening to conservatives and freedom of speech, it is wise not to trust all of your assets to one single bank, or for that matter, this what do you call it? The dollar derivative? The dollar connected currency.
World Reserve currency.
World Reserve currency. Yeah. You don't want to connect everything to the dollar because it's sick and ailing, and you certainly don't want to trust the banks not to be looking at what you're tweeting on X.
Well, we know that they've shared information, with the government, especially about January 6 people, whatever religious organization. They've searched certain terms. So privacy is a big part of it too, of owning gold, having sovereignty and taking control of some of your money rather than having it all monitored and not private for sure. And unfortunately, a lot of the banking system is they're using AI right now to look at our accounts and share information. But listen, you can take matters into your own hands, and we do need the banks for living expenses. We do need some stuff from time to time, but you don't have to keep all of your money there. And if you have some of these concerns, you can do something about it. That's the point of what we're talking about. It's obvious of what's going on. At least I feel it should be obvious.
It should be.
And for anybody, anybody who's listening out there, time is now. Time's running out. So I don't know what people are waiting for. Give us a call.
Call Midas Gold Group today. They are veteran-owned, America First Patriots, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD, or always at MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com, or 855-322-GOLD. Thanks for joining us. It's the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.